You've watched AI build a landing page or a web app in like 30 seconds, right? And then you felt your stomach drop, basically. So, is it already too late? Has the thing you do or the thing you are just starting to learn already been made pointless by a machine? I won't pretend that your fear is irrational, but here is what it gets wrong. AI isn't erasing web designers, it's sorting them into two groups, the ones it makes irrelevant and the ones it makes far more valuable. And the gap between those two groups isn't talent, it isn't years, it isn't how fast you can push pixels. It's one shift in how you see the work itself, okay? And here's the part that should take some of the pressure off. That shift doesn't expire, okay? The tools will keep changing. There will be a new one next month and then another the month after that, right? If you bet your future on one tool, the next one will leave you behind. But the shift sits underneath them all, okay? Make it once, and you stay valuable no matter which tool comes next. That shift is yours to make. And in this course, that's exactly what I'm going to teach you. How to make the shift and how to become the designer the machine makes more valuable and not less. Before we go any further, let me be transparent about what this is, okay? It's the whole course. Free, no ads, not a preview, not a teaser for something you have to buy, right? It's the whole thing right here. And I'm not going to promise you a number. I'm not going to tell you that you will get rich. I'm not going to tell you that you will quit your job in like a few days, right? Anyone who promises that is trying to sell you something. Here's the only thing I can actually promise. By the end of this, you will build real things, real websites, real web apps, and you will know why they are good. I will help you develop your taste, basically. And I will teach you to understand and navigate this new era. What to do with it is up to you. I've been doing this for around 22 years now, okay? And I actually do this to this day. I take on real clients, I work on real projects. And so this is what I do basically, okay? It's not just what I teach. And I will tell you this much. I've never been more certain that this is a good time to be a designer if you are willing to put in the work and change with it. All right, so here's the entire road, four parts. Part one, we get your mind right and lay the foundation everything else sits on. Part two, we build for real, real websites, real web apps, the way it's actually done right now. Okay. Part three, operating like a pro, the systems that keep the work sane and the business that turns into a living. Part four, you prove it. You build the thing that shows the world what you can do. That's the map. Now let's start at the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a fun ride. Welcome to Module 1, the director's mind. I know why you are here. You want to build, and you will, a lot, okay? But the tools were never what made designers succeed, right? It was how they saw the work. And now that the machine can build, that matters more than ever. So before we build anything, the first part is about how you see the work. Here's how it goes. Four stages. First, the reframe. We change how you see the work and how you see yourself. Then, the foundation, the beliefs and discipline that decide how far you can go. Then, the demons, the quiet traps that stop most people before they even start. And last, the becoming. All of it turns into a habit, okay, until it's simply who you are. That's the shape. Let's begin. All right, so let's start with the reframe. Lesson 1.1. Are you obsolete? At the start, I asked if it was too late. I gave you the short answer. AI doesn't replace web designers, it's sorting them, right? Now, I will give you the part that actually decides which side you land on. And it's not what you would guess, okay? The people who end up on the wrong side are usually not the lazy ones. It's the opposite. When a person gets scared of being replaced, they do the most natural thing in the world. They work harder at what they already do. They try to get faster. They, try to learn all these different tools. They grind. And that instinct, the one that feels like fighting back, is the trap. Here's why. The thing you would be grinding on is the making, right? The production, the moving of pieces on a screen. That is the exact thing the machine now does in seconds for almost nothing. So the harder you push there, the better you get at the one thing the world is about to stop paying for. You are not standing still, okay? You are running very fast in the wrong direction. And here's the cruel part, it will feel like progress. Every hard thing you push through, your mind counts as a step forward. But hard is not the same as forward. You can fight through 100 obstacles and still be walking away from the prize. So let me ask you honestly, not about the field, about you. When you feel that fear, where do you put that energy? Into doing more, faster, into exploring new tools, or into getting better at deciding what is worth doing at all, right? Because that second thing, the judgment, the taste, the direction, is the thing that the machine can't reach. And this isn't just me saying it, okay? Researchers at Harvard working with the Boston Consulting Group ran a real test with over 750 people, okay? Professionals using AI for real work. And the AI made them much better at the tasks it is good at, okay? But it made them worse at the tasks it is bad at because they trusted it when they shouldn't have. The people who came out ahead during the research were not the ones who handed everything to the machine, okay? They were the ones who knew when to trust and when to step in with their own judgment. This is the whole game, knowing what is good, knowing when to step in, okay? The most important person in an orchestra plays no instruments at all. Hold on to that because we'll come back to it later, okay? And here's what I most want you to hear. Judgment and taste are now the rarest, most valuable things in this field. So the real question is simple. How do you develop them? Maybe you've done this for years. Then you've got a head start. The judgment you've built in that time did not become worthless. It became the most valuable thing you own. Or maybe you are just starting and you feel like you have none of it yet. It's good because you are now in the right place. Because I'm going to teach you how to develop them. So whether you have 20 years or you started yesterday, the game is the same, okay? So stop trying to beat the machine at making things. You won't and you don't have to. Let it bring the speed, you bring the taste and the judgment. That's the shift, and it starts by clearing the first lie out of your way. Lesson 1.2, the lie of creativity. There is a lie you've probably carried your whole life, that creativity is something you are born with, right? That some people just have it. The artist, the musician, the designer, ideas come to them. The work just flows, right? And everyone else is standing outside looking in. You either have it or you don't. It's not true. It was never true. Because when you look closely at how creative work is actually made, it almost never arrives whole, right? It starts rough, a line, a shape, a half form idea. Then someone looks at it and says, not yet. They move something, they remove something, try another version, right? They look again and try and try again and perfect it, refine it. So that is creativity, not pulling perfection out of nowhere, right? Seeing what is there, seeing what it could become, and slowly closing the gap. Look at Beethoven, for example. People remember the finished music, right? The part that survived. But he left behind sketchbooks full of fragments, changes, and different versions of the same ideas. Even Beethoven did not escape the process. Okay, we see the masterpiece. We don't see all the decisions that made it one, right? And you already know what this feels like. You take a photo, you look at it, something feels wrong, right? So you move two steps to the side, you change the frame, you try again, or you basically arrange the room, the lighting, you move something, you stand back, you move it again. You made a judgment. That is the seed of every creative act. So the simplest definition I can give you is this. Creativity is taste plus trying again. Taste tells you something is not right yet. Trying again moves it closer. All humans are creative, okay? Remember that. Maybe your taste is still developing, maybe you don't trust it yet, maybe you haven't given it enough practice or time, but that is very different from not having it. You are not empty, you are probably early. And this matters more than ever now because AI can generate more ideas in 1 minute than you could make in a full day, okay? Layouts, images, names, colors, whole websites, landing pages, whatever. But more options are not the same as better answers, okay? Generation is only one part of the creative work. Someone still has to decide, right? Things like what is this for? What should it feel like? What belongs? What needs to go? Which version says what we actually mean? And when is it ready? That is judgment. That's you. AI does not remove the process. It changes where you enter it. Okay, you may not make every piece by hand, okay, manually, or in the traditional way, but you still look, you still judge, you still direct, you still try again. So stop asking, am I a creative? Ask a better question. You should be asking, am I willing to look closely, make a choice, and keep working until it feels right? Because that is the real skill. And it can be built. But if the machine now does much of the making, what is exactly does that make you? That is the next shift. Lesson 1.3: Operator versus Director. Think about an orchestra. Dozens of people are playing, right? Strings, brass, woodwind, percussion. Each person knows their instrument very well. Each person has spent years learning how to use it. And standing in front of them is someone who plays no instruments at all, the conductor. Let me give you an example. Apple. Steve Wozniak was an extraordinary engineer. He designed the early computers that basically made Apple possible. But he was not the only musician, right? As Apple grew, there were engineers, designers, programmers, marketers, and manufacturers, right? Each one played a different part. Steve Jobs played a different role. He saw what the technology could become, and then he basically pushed the product toward ordinary people. And he brought different kinds of talent around to one clear direction, just like an orchestra. Bosniak was one of its great musicians. Jobs was trying to conduct the whole thing, overseeing everything, setting the direction, bringing every part together. The point is not that one role mattered and the other didn't. Without great musicians, there is no great music, right? They were different skills, and both were necessary. The conductor does not make the sound directly, right? But the conductor decides how the whole thing should sound. Too fast, too soft, the strings are covering the melody, the entrance came too early, or, like that section needs more space. Stop again. The conductor listens to everything, but is not trapped inside one instrument, right? That is what gives them the view of the whole. And that is the shift happening right now. For a long time, the designer was also the person moving every piece by hand, right? Drawing every shape, building every screen, writing every line, making every variation. The person with their hands on the tool was the operator. And being a good operator mattered because production was difficult, okay? But now the machine can operate at the speed no person can match. It can generate the layout, write the code, create the image, connect the data, produce 10 more variations before you finish the first one, right? If your whole value is operating the tool, you are racing the machine at one thing it does best. You will lose that race. But the conductor is not racing the violinist, right? The conductor has a different job. The operator asks, how do I make this, right? The director, on the other hand, asks, what should exist? Who is this for? What should they feel, right? What matters most? What does not belong? And is this version actually good enough? The operator focuses on the task, the director holds the purpose. And that purpose changes every decision. A button is not only a button. What should happen when someone presses it, right? A page is not only a page. What should the person understand before they leave it? A web app is not only a collection of features, right? What problem should it solve? And what should feel effortless, right? The machine cannot answer those questions for you. It can suggest, it can sound confident, it can give you 20 directions before breakfast, right? But it cannot carry the responsibility for choosing the right one. You do. And that's what being a director means, not sitting back while the machine does everything, not typing one sentence and accepting whatever comes out. A director is not passive, right? A director is responsible for the final result. If the work is confusing, the director must see it. If the machine takes a shortcut, the director must catch it. If the final version is weak, the director must ask for another, right? If the idea itself is wrong, the director must be willing to throw it away. The conductor does not play the instruments, right? But the conductor needs to hear when something is wrong. This is judgment. And judgment is not the same as knowing every single detail, okay? You do not need to know how every instrument was built to know the music feels rushed, right? You do not need to write every line of code to know the experience is broken, but you do need to look closely. You need to test it, right? You need to ask questions. You need to understand enough to judge what is in front of you. And that's why this course will still teach you the, like the technical part, right? The essentials: design systems, code, data, security, deployment, clients, business, all that stuff, right? And not because you need to become the best operator in every field, but you need enough understanding to direct each part and verify the result. That is a much bigger role. And it is also a harder one because the operator can say, I completed the task. The director has to ask, was this the right task, right? The operator can follow instructions. The director has to create direction. The operator can hide behind the tool. The director owns the outcome. And this is not only about artificial intelligence, it changes how you see yourself. You are not just the person who knows Figma or Webflow or Framer or React or whatever tool comes next. Tools change all the time. Your role survives them. You are the person who decides what should be made, brings the right parts together, and keeps working until the whole thing is right. The machine executes, you direct. That is not only what you will do, that's who you are becoming. But to become someone new, you first need to believe that you are able to change. That is where we go next. Now let's dive into the foundation. Lesson 1.4: The growth mindset. There is a belief that quietly decides how far you will go in almost anything. Most people never notice they hold it. It's the belief about whether you can change, right? Some people see ability as fixed. You are either good at something or you are not, technical or not technical, creative or not creative, confident or not confident. As if you were given a fixed amount at the beginning and that was all you would ever have, right? But think about every skill you have right now. At some point, you were bad at it, right? You didn't know what to do, you made mistakes, you felt slow. Then you kept going, and slowly, what felt impossible at first started to feel normal. I remember when I was a kid and I started, typing on a computer keyboard, right? I was super slow and I thought I would never be able to write fast. Now I can write even without looking at the keyboard, right? So ability is not fixed, it's built. This is the same truth as the lie of creativity, right? It was never a gift that appeared fully formed, right? It grew through use, repetition, practice, and there is one small word that changes how you see all of this, right? The word is yet. Because when you just say, I'm not good at this, that's a wall, right? But then if you say, I'm not good at this yet, that's a door. One sentence decides that the story is over, and then the other one leaves room for you to keep moving. And you are going to need that door throughout this course and throughout your career. There will be moments when the work feels difficult. The design might not look right. You know what I'm saying? You might run into some issues. The machine may give you something you don't understand. The build may break. All that stuff. Also, you may look at someone else's work and feel far behind, right? And then you feel that FOMO that you are like missing something, whatever. And then at that moment, what happens is that your mind will try to explain the discomfort, will try to justify it, saying things like, maybe I'm not creative enough, maybe I'm not technical enough, maybe this is not for me, maybe I'm too old, maybe I'm too young. So be careful. Difficulty is not proof that you cannot do something. Most of the time, it is proof that you are still learning it. The fixed mindset sees struggle and turns it into identity. This is hard, so I must not be made for it, right? The growth mindset, on the other hand, sees struggle and turns it into information. This is hard, so I need to practice more. I need a different approach. I need better help, right? And that does not mean that you can become anything just by believing hard enough or manifesting or whatever, right? Belief does not replace work. It basically decides whether you stay long enough for the work to change you. And that matters now more than ever. The tools will keep changing, as I said before. The model you learn today will not be the last one, right? The workflow that feels new now will eventually feel normal. So the most important skill is not knowing everything already, okay? It is knowing that you can learn whatever comes next. And let me tell you, you do not need to feel ready for the whole road, right? You only need to stop treating your current limits as permanent ones. Maybe you cannot do it today. Fine, not yet. And when you include yet, that is enough to keep the door open. And once the door is open, the next question is practical. What kind of life are you trying to build through all this work? That's what we'll explore next. Lesson 1.5: The Lie of the Starving Artist. There is another belief that holds creative people back, and this one often starts before they ever enter the field. It is the belief that creative work does not pay, that traditional careers lead to stability, but creative careers lead to struggle. A doctor can earn well, a lawyer can earn well, like an engineer can earn well, but an artist, a designer, a musician, people often treat those careers like a gamble. Okay, maybe you get lucky, maybe someone discovers you, maybe you become one of the few chosen ones. But most creative people, we are told, will struggle. They will work long hours, they will earn little, and they might need to eventually find a real job, right? This is the lie of the starving artist. And it's not only about painters or musicians, right? It affects designers too, especially when you are starting. You might think something like web design is useful, maybe I can make a living from it, but probably there is a limit. There are other creative fields where people can earn serious money: film, 3D, advertising, large productions, maybe like interior design, whatever. But web design, maybe it's not that kind of field, right? That's what you would think. Maybe the best you can hope for is enough work to survive, right? And if you believe that, it changes how you behave, because you start undercharging, you accept bad clients, you take whatever work appears, right? You stay quiet when the project grows beyond what was agreed on. You become afraid to name a higher price, because somewhere in your mind you have already decided what someone like you is allowed to earn, right? I know this because I did this for years. When I started, I undercharged all the time, not because every potential client had told me that my work was worthless. I was scared that if I said a bigger number, the potential client would leave. So even before they answer, I would lower the price myself. I would basically negotiate against myself, right? And somewhere in my mind, I had already placed a ceiling on web design. I looked at other creative fields like 3D artists, creative directors, art directors, people working on large productions, as I said before. And I thought, like maybe they can earn that much. But web design is not that kind of field. In reality, that was not the market speaking. That was my insecurity speaking for the market. I had created a ceiling inside my own mind. And then I was living under it as if someone had put it there, right? The important shift was not pretending that money would suddenly appear. It was understanding what clients actually pay for, so doing my research. They do not pay only for the time you spend moving things on a screen. They pay for problems solved, right? They pay for clarity, trust, attention, sales, better systems, a better experience for the person using the product. They pay for someone who can understand difficult problems, for someone who can make good decisions and carry responsibility until the result works. Once I understood that, I started charging how I worked. I improved the craft. I learned to understand the client's real problems. I became better at explaining the value of what I was doing. I learned how to sell. I learned how to manage larger projects. I stopped giving clients a smaller number before they had even answered. The last project I signed before recording this course was a 15K per month retainer, and that's web design. And then before that, I was paid more than 40K for a multidisciplinary project that combined graphic design with some web design. And no, I'm not going to cover the screen with cheesy payment screenshots, right? This is not that kind of course. I'm giving you real numbers because vague success stories would not prove the point. Web design did not have the small earning ceiling I had placed on it, right? Now, I'm not telling you that changing one belief will automatically create those results. It will not. In my case, it took years of work, patience, experience, better judgment, positioning, sales, and learning how to carry much larger responsibility. And along the way, I've made a lot of mistakes, but it's fine because that's how it's supposed to be. I learn from them. This is not the promise that every single web designer will earn the same amount, But none of it could have happened while I still believe that the web design had a small ceiling. So it's a mindset shift. I would have rejected the possibility before anyone else could, right? That is what these beliefs do. They do not only make you feel insecure, they change the opportunities you pursue. And not only that, also the prices you name, the rooms you enter, the clients you speak to, and the responsibility you believe you can carry. Earning more did not pull me away from the craft. It allowed me to invest back into it. The setup I'm recording this course from, the computer, the equipment, the software, all that stuff came from the work. And those tools gave me more freedom to work on bigger ideas, the demanding software, to take on projects I could have not handled before with my old computer. The work also allowed me to travel, to experience more of the world, to create memories, to support the people I care about, and also to build more freedom into my life. That is what most people want, basically, right? Not a fantasy life, not a private jet, right? Just the ability to do good work, earn well, control more of your time, take care of your family, and also other fun stuff like traveling, building a work environment you are proud of, all that stuff, right? And also, it makes easier for you to say no when a project does not fit your values. I've said no to many projects that did not fit my values, right? And that's an amazing thing. So you do not need to pretend that money doesn't matter, right? It matters. It pays the bills, it protects your time, it gives your family stability, it lets you invest in better tools. Also, it gives you more power to choose your clients. Money is not the whole purpose of the work, right? But pretending it doesn't matter doesn't make you more creative, and being underpaid does not make your work more honest. Most of the time, financial pressure makes the work harder, right? It makes you tired, it makes you desperate, it makes every decision carry more fear. When you desperately need the next payment, it becomes harder to challenge a bad idea, right? Harder to protect the standard, harder to walk away from the wrong client. So, no, creative people are not automatically bound to make little money, and serious income is not reserved to a tiny group chosen at birth. But it is also not automatic. A creative career does not become valuable just because you want it to, right? Your value grows as your judgment grows, as your work improves, as you solve more important problems, as you communicate better, as you become easier to trust, as you learn how to create real results, as you become capable of carrying more responsibility. That is the difference. You are not waiting to be discovered. You are building the ability to become more useful. You are building proof. You are building trust. You are building a career. There may be periods of struggle. That's real. Creative work can be uncertain sometimes. Traditional careers, on the other hand, can sometimes offer a cleaner path. But struggle is not the final destination, okay? And low income is not part of your creative identity. You can care deeply about the work. You can earn well from it. You can use that income to build a better life. Those things are not enemies. One can protect the other. So be careful what ceiling you accept. The public may have told you that creative work is not a real career, that only the lucky few ever make it, right? That stability belongs to other people, but your current position is not your final position. And the ceiling you imagine may not be a ceiling at all, right? It may only be a belief. You need to believe that there is more, but believing that more is possible is only the beginning. You still need discipline to build it, right? And that becomes harder when there are shortcuts everywhere. Lesson 1.6: Discipline in the age of shortcuts. We have talked about building a better life, but believing that more is possible does not build it. Work does. And that brings us to discipline. Discipline has always been important, but in the age of AI, it matters for a different reason. Because making things has never been easier. You can describe an idea and see it in seconds: a layout, an image, a piece of writing, a working feature. Something that once took days can now appear before you finish your coffee. That's powerful. And it's a good thing. Speed is not the enemy, right? Shortcuts are not the enemy. I use them every day. In fact, you are using a shortcut right now, right? This course is a shortcut because some of the knowledge you will get from here probably would take you years and years and years, right? That's a shortcut. The problem when using AI begins when we confuse easy production with real progress, right? Because AI makes it easy to start. it does not make it easy to finish well, right? Starting gives you energy, the idea is new, the possibilities feel endless. You generate the first version, and for a moment, it feels like magic, right? Then the real work begins. You notice the layout doesn't quite work, the writing feels empty, the feature breaks in situations you did not test, the design looks good in one place and then falls apart somewhere else. Now the excitement is gone. And that is the moment discipline becomes visible, okay? Discipline is not starting when you feel inspired. Almost anyone can do that. Discipline is staying after the excitement disappears. It is looking at the first result and refusing to pretend that it is finished. It is testing, fixing, removing, trying again. It is, asking the machine for another version when the first one is not good enough. And sometimes it is ignoring the machine and making the decision yourself. AI can give you speed, but it cannot care whether you finish. It cannot care whether the work is honest. It cannot care whether the person using it has a good experience. It cannot care whether your promises are actually true. You have to care. And caring becomes action through discipline. This is where shortcuts can become dangerous, not because they save time. Saving time is useful. They become dangerous when they let you escape the part of work that develops you. The machine can give you an answer immediately, but sometimes the first answer is shallow. The machine can create a finished looking design, but finished looking is not the same as finished. The AI, for example, can say that the feature works, but its confidence is not proof. So, discipline in this era means more than working hard. It means refusing to become careless just because the tools became more powerful. It means checking what the machine gives you. It means reading reality, not only the answer on a screen. Does it work? Does it make sense? Does it solve the right problem? Would you put your name on it? That last question matters because when production is cheap, you can make more bad work than ever before. More unfinished ideas, more weak designs, more features that nobody needs, more projects started then abandoned. You can spend the whole day producing things and still move nowhere. That is one of the strange dangers of this moment. You can be very busy without being disciplined. You can generate 100 ideas, 100 options because choosing one feels difficult. You can keep changing tools because learning one deeply takes patience. You can start another project because finishing the current one becomes uncomfortable, right? And you can call all that work, but sometimes it is just avoidance moving very quickly. Discipline brings you back to the question what matters now, not what is exciting, not what is new, not what the AI can generate next, right? What actually moves the work forward. Sometimes the answer is another idea, sometimes it is another version, but often the answer is less exciting. Fix the problem. Finish the page, test the feature, send the proposal if you have to send one. Ask the question, make the decision, ship the work. AI does not remove those moments. It makes them easier to avoid because there is always something new to generate, another direction, another tool, another possibility. Discipline means closing some of those doors, choosing one direction, staying with it, long enough to discover what it needs, and carrying it across the finish line. And this does not mean working slowly. The goal is not to reject speed. The goal is to combine speed with care. Okay, so let the machine save you time. Let it handle repetition. Let it help you explore. Let it make the first version faster than you ever could. Okay, then bring your judgment. And then bring your standards, bring your patience, bring the discipline to turn fast output into good work because AI can remove the friction from making, right? Making becomes easy. You still need discipline to become good or excellent. And this applies far beyond design. You will not build a career from one exciting week. You will not build a strong body from one workout. You will not build trust from one conversation, right? And it's unlikely that you will build a business from one successful project. It's like one successful project obviously helps, right? But you have to do it again and again and again for a long time. The results people admire are usually built through ordinary actions repeated for a long time. This is not as exciting as a shortcut, but it's more reliable. So use the shortcuts, as I said before. Use the speed, use every useful tool you can find, but do not let convenience make you weak. Do not let instant results destroy your patience. And do not let the first version convince you that the work is finished. The machine can help you begin, right? Discipline is what helps you continue. And not only continue, but discipline actually helps you finish as well. But discipline without direction can still send you the wrong way. You need to know what you are building toward. That's why setting goals and planning is very important. Lesson 1.7: Setting goals and planning. Belief matters. A better ceiling matters. Discipline matters. But none of it helps if you don't know where are you going. You can believe that more is possible, you can work hard, you can stay consistent, and still end up in the wrong place. Because discipline without direction is just effort, and effort by itself is not the goal, right? This is why goals matter. Not because goals are magic, not because writing something down will suddenly make it appear. Goals matter because they give your effort a direction. They help you decide what deserves your attention. They help you say no. They help you notice when you are drifting, right? And in a world where we have like infinite tools, infinite content, infinite possibilities, right? Goals matter more than ever. Most people do not fail because they have no ambition. They fail because their ambition stays vague. They say something like, I want to become better, I want to learn design, or I want to make money online, or I want to get clients, I want to build something, right? Those are not bad desires, right? But they are too blurry to guide you, to guide your daily actions. A blurry goal creates blurry work. So the first job of planning is to turn desire into something specific to act on. Not perfect, specific. There is a difference, right? You do not need your entire future figured out. You do not need to know every client you will work with. You do not need to know every tool you will use, every project you will build, every version of yourself you will become. You only need enough clarity to know your next honest target. For example, I'm going to finish this course. Okay, you can say that. You can say, I'm going to build the main project. I'm going to publish my portfolio. I'm going to create 3 pieces of proof. I'm going to reach out to real prospects, right? That is different from saying something like, I want to become successful. Success is too vague. Proof is clearer. A published portfolio is clearer. Sending an email to a prospect is clearer, right? A call booked by a real prospect is clearer. Clear goals make the next action easier to see. And that is important because your mood will not always help you. Some days you will feel motivated, right? Some days you will feel slow. Some days you will doubt everything. Some days you will want to start over with a new tool, a new plan, a new identity, but planning protects you from those days. A plan is not there to, because you are a robot, right? It is there because you are human. And it gives you something to return to when your emotions change, right? Without a plan, every day becomes a new negotiation. What should I do today? Should I keep going? Should I switch? Should I learn something new? Should I start like another project? Should I wait until I feel ready? That kind of negotiation is exhausting, right? And most people lose it, not because they are lazy, but because they make too many decisions while they are tired, confused, or discouraged. A good plan removes some of that friction. It says, this is the direction, this is the next step, and this is what I said I would do before my mood changes. Okay. That does not mean you never adjust. Plans are not prisons, right? A bad plan should be changed. A better opportunity should be considered. New information should matter, but you have to be careful, right? Because there is a difference between adjusting because reality taught you something new and changing direction because the work became uncomfortable. Okay, one is wisdom and then the other one is avoidance. You need to learn the difference, right? And one way to do that is basically to keep it simple. Too many people create plans that feel good one afternoon and then collapse in real life. They plan like 10 things a day, they build a perfect calendar, they imagine a version of themselves with unlimited energy, perfect focus, no family, no stress, no bad days, no unexpected problems. Then real life arrives and the plan breaks, basically, and they blame themselves. But sometimes the problem was not discipline. The problem was a fantasy plan. A good plan respects reality. It gives you a direction but leaves room to be human. Your plan should be simple enough that you can come back to it after a hard week. It should make progress visible and it should connect to proof because proof changes everything. Proof is what turns desire into something tangible. You can say you want to become a web designer, but a finished project says more. You can say you are learning, but a published piece of work says more. You can say you want clients, right? But a real offer sent to a real person says more. That is why in this course, the goal is not only to understand. Understanding matters, obviously, but it's not enough. The goal is to finish with proof. Proof that you can think, proof that you can design, proof that you can direct AI, proof that you can build something real, proof that you can publish it, and proof that you can explain why it matters. That is the road, not a fantasy version of your future, okay? A visible trail of finished work. So, as you move through this course, do not ask, did I watch the lesson? Ask, did this help me build? What did this help me decide? What did this help me finish? because watching is easy, collecting information is very easy, feeling inspired is easy. The hard thing is to turn that energy into a direction and then turning that direction into finished work. That is what goals and planning are for. They are not there to make your life feel more strict. They are there to protect the work from chaos. They are there to protect your future from your mood. There will be ups and downs. They are also there to help you keep promises to the version of yourself you are trying to become. So keep it simple. Choose the next target, make it visible, connect it to proof. Then build a sustainable plan, okay? Not a perfect plan. The plan you will return to when the excitement fades, because it will fade. If you do it correctly, belief will open the door, okay? Discipline will keep you moving, and then planning gives you, a clear direction. That is the foundation. But even with the right beliefs, the right discipline, and a clear direction, something will still try to stop you. Not outside you, inside you. Something that is inside you, okay? And that's what we will talk about in the next lesson. If you are following along, the complete course roadmap is linked below. And if you want to go through this with other designers, ask questions, and stay connected to the course, you can join the Web Designers Collective. It's a free community for designers following the course. To join, go to webdesignerscollective.com/join. I will see you there. In this video, we change how you see the work, how you see creativity, how you see money, discipline, and direction. But knowing the right path does not mean you will walk it, right? It doesn't mean you will execute on it. So in video two, we move from the foundation to the things that quietly interrupt it: the fear, the doubt, the distractions, the patterns that make people stop even when they know what they should do. So in the next video, we'll face those directly.